Thanks for tuning in. Today we're going to be reviewing the Northwave Extreme GT2 road cycling shoes. If you're looking for pro-level performance from your road cycling shoes but don't have a pro budget, the Northwave has you covered. Their new Northwave Extreme GT2 shoes take a lot of the features from their Extreme Pro cycling shoes and bring them at a more accessible price point. You can see packaging is really simple, just a cardboard box. Northwave logo on top. It's an Italian brand, and they have more distributors now in the US, so you should be able to access them more easily if you're in the North American market. Basic graphics on the side. Sizing you do have to be very careful with. This is a 43.5 euro, and it corresponds to a 10 3/4 US, so it's a little bit different than other brands. So definitely recommend looking through their sizing guide and their sizing charts. Let's go ahead and take it out of the box and go over the specs. So retail price on this is $249.99, so much more affordable than the almost $400 or $500 Extreme Pro variation of the shoes. But it inherits a lot of the technology. So it has a Morph Carbon 12 AAS sole. So you can see it's a two-piece design with the heel pads on the front and back, full ventilation, and 100% carbon fiber plate here that has 3-bolt compatibility for Shimano or Look cleats. And you also have these 4 bolts you can see here that work with the Speedplay with a separate adapter you can buy separately. And that has a very low stack height, so if you're running Speedplay pedals, these are a great shoe to consider. You have a dual SLW3 dial system, so it's not a BOA dial, it's actually their in-house style. So it has full micro adjustments for tightening and loosening as well, using a little side button, which is unique to Northwave. It has the Extreme XFrame 2 construction, so it's a very thin upper construction, and you can see very flexible with the internal structure actually hidden inside. A nice perforated design as well, so you get a very good combination of lightweight and durability without a lot of the bulk you traditionally get with the upper constructions. It has an anatomical arch support. It's not heat moldable, but this is a TPU design, and it's actually designed to mold to your feet and compress, so it's an interesting variation. Instead of having molded, you have little moldable pieces. The finish we have here is the silver, and you can see it's actually reflective. So in the sun, this whole back one is reflective, and you have this reflective pattern that goes up from the bottom, so a unique look. In terms of what comes in the box, you get the shoes, obviously, a basic tag to show you how to use the SLW3 dial, since they're a little bit different from BOA or ATOP. And otherwise, not too much. You get a little shoe guide here, which is definitely not too useful, just different languages. And also in here, you do get the Look memory eyelet bolts, and that's for the center bolt. Now, if you're not going to be using this, I recommend bolting it down, because otherwise you can see that centerpiece actually moves back and forth, and you don't want to lose these little bolts, so I definitely recommend just putting them in there and locking it in place. Now let's take a look at the weight of these shoes. We take the left shoe, that comes in at 306, while the right shoe comes in at 300. So a slight variation between the two, but still pretty light overall. Now let's go over the fit and finish of the Northwave Extreme GT2 shoes. As you can see, they're pretty good looking shoes, especially in the silver finish. It's actually reflective too, so you can see the back portion is fully reflective. And then it almost has a sprayed on effect where it fades in from the bottoms all the way up to the front to give you that nice reflectivity. It's also available in a black color if you're looking for something more subtle. And the website does show a nice chameleon variation, but that's not available in the North American market. So you're limited to only the black and this version of these shoes. Now, design-wise, the big thing with these shoes is they use Northwave's XFrame 2 technology. This is a special way to construct the upper material. So it uses a very thin 0.5 millimeter upper construction. And you can see it's a one-piece design that stretches all the way through. You don't have a traditional tongue here. Instead, you have this wraparound design that's actually just cut down the middle. And you can see that here, the two pieces just overlap. It gives that really form-fitting feel. It's a perforated upper as well, so nice ventilation through here. And what's unique about this is they also have 3 ventilation holes on the sole. So you have one scoop in the front, another one right behind your cleat, and then a little exhaust port behind that. So definitely nice for summer. This is not the most ventilated shoe Northwave offers. Instead, it kind of sits between the Extreme Pro and some of the other variations that have more ventilation, but a little bit heavier. So this is a little bit heavier than the Extreme Pro, but has very similar performance characteristics, just a more affordable price point. As I said, wraparound design. So wraps up and over, and that's something you see with a lot more high-end shoes, which is nice to see at $250. Although it's not super affordable, $250 is a lot cheaper than a lot of the $400 or $500 shoes we've reviewed here. The other thing that's really nice about these shoes is you get a dual dial setup with a lot of more affordable variations in the $200 range. You end up with one dial just to make that price point. But with this, they use Northwave's in-house dial design and lets them use both rather than having to pay the fees to BOA or ATOP. What's unique about these dials compared to BOA or ATOP is that they use a little side button. So you get the same micro tightening adjustment by rotating, and you can see both of them adjust. So you get a dual zone setup. You can see the lacing pattern. You have the top portion and then the bottom portion, so you can really fine tune the fit. But then with the Northwave design, you can see you have this little button that comes off the side. So this gives you two actions. You can press it, and this will actually do little releases. So you can see micro loosening adjustment, which is really nice to have. As I said, a lot of the more affordable BOA variations and ATOP do not offer the micro loosening. So it's nice to have here. And then you have full release. So you can see if I fully tighten and then pull up, this will actually release the tension completely. So it unlocks it, unlocks both sides, and then you can put your shoe in there. The big difference here is when you do a release, unlike the BOA, you can see it actually just holds it in place. So when you let go, it's locked again. Whereas the BOA, when you pull it up, it stays unlocked. So this one you have to hold. Otherwise, really simple, and you can see very thin top design with the additional bulk just coming from this little button addition. But what's nice about this is you get the dual setup, and although it's not quite as intuitive as a BOA dial, which does rotation in one direction, and their higher end dials allow you to do a loosening in the other direction, this one definitely is something you can get used to. And because it's just a little side button, you can do this one button. You can just press it as you're riding to loosen it. You can see you have a nice heel support as well, and this has the cat tongue material. So it's soft in one direction and then very grippy in the other. So it keeps your heel in place, and you can see it narrows down on the back. You have nice soft material on the front as well. This is a pain point with a lot of road cycling shoes where this can have a very thin but pointy thing that can dig into your ankles. This one has nice soft material to avoid that. Going to the sole, this is where Northwave is a little bit less transparent. They call this the Morph Carbon 12, and it has a stiffness index of 12, as you can see here. Stiffness index, as we've talked about before, doesn't really mean anything. Every brand makes up their own scale. It's not a standardized measure. The Pro version of these shoes has a stiffness index of 15. So it's a scale from 0 to 15, so still stiff, but not the stiffest they offer. It is a carbon material, but apparently some sort of blend for the main portion. And then 100% carbon here for the plate. And what's cool about this is that you can actually run 3-bolt with the Look memory eyelet here. So that's a great way to swap out your Look Keo cleats without messing up the location. And you can also see you have the Speedplay bolts here. So what you can actually do is open the shoe up, and you actually have to cut out the little foam on here and then add a little adapter with the 4-bolt compatibility and the little adapter plate to make it flat. And then you can run Speedplay pedals with 3mm less stack height than the standard Speedplay adapter. So a very nice feature, and Northwave has been working with Speedplay for a long time, so it's very well integrated into their shoes. Now let's take a look at the insole. Obviously, all of these ventilation ports on the bottom wouldn't mean anything if you didn't have ventilation through the actual insole. You can see here, very well ventilated. So it matches the ports, so the front, the middle, and the back. It has nice wraparound design to keep you nice and comfortable. And the little metatarsal button here with this little indentation on here, which is also nice to see. With these open, you can actually see the holes here. So very large ventilation holes with little meshes here so you don't get any debris. And they're very visible. You can see on the front and then all the way down the side, which is harder to see. You can see there's one all the way in the front here. And this is actually where you can see what you'd have to do. So in order to swap this to Speedplay, you'd have to go along that perforated line and then cut it and then put the adapter on top. It's a little bit time intensive, but rather simple to do if you really want to run the Speedplay at the lower stack height. Here you can see the Northwave shoes on the road. The silver reflective finish has a nice gradient effect to it. And although the dual SLW3 dials are a little bit less intuitive than BOA dials, they do work well and give you that dual zones. You also like the sole here. It has that nice carbon fiber finish, and even though it's not a stiffness of 15 like the Pro version of these shoes, it's still very stiff. And again, the dual zones of the dial system lets you dial in the fit easily. Here on the top view, you can see that although the XFrame 2 construction does mean it's a one piece and fairly soft, it is still a little bit stiff, so you don't see it flex as much as you would a knit shoe or from other brands. Here you can see the shoes on the bike. Performance-wise, we're really impressed. Even though they're $250, you get the dual dial setup and the stiff carbon fiber sole, which means these perform as well as the Shimano S-PHYREs or Bond Vapors, which can cost almost double this price. The main complaint we have is the X-Frame construction is a little bit stiff around the ankles, which causes a bit of a pressure point. Now let's do a comparison between the Northwave Extreme GT shoes and other shoes on the market. We've done a lot of shoe reviews here, so we have quite the lineup. Everything from the more affordable FLR variations all the way to the $500 Scott SL Supersonic shoes. Now starting with the more affordable shoes, you can see this is the FLR F11, and it's a simple nylon base, 3-bolt construction. It has a look memory eyelid, which is nice, non-replaceable heel and toe pads, and their nice mesh upper construction. Now at the more affordable price point, the big difference is the closure system. So single dial A-top, which works well, but because it's so long, you don't get the dual zones and the more micro adjustments. And with the A-top dial, you can see it's tightening in one direction and then a full release in the other. That's the big difference. All their dials currently are the same style, so it only has micro tightening and then full release. Compared to the Northwave shoes, you can see similar style, but instead of the tongueless look, you have the wraparound one-piece upper for more form-fitting feel and the dual Northwave SLW3 dials with the dual zones, which gives you more adjustability. There's also a lighter construction with the ventilated and extreme, the XFrame 2 upper material. As you go up in the price, you have a lot more options. The other Italian shoe we recently reviewed are the DMT KR3s. You can see mesh construction. It's very soft on the DMT because it's a knitted material, while it's a little bit stiffer with the XFrame 2. Big difference here again, dual dial setup, something you don't typically see at the $200 or $250 price point. So it's really nice to have that micro adjustment as well. So this is a lot more comparable to the high-end BOA dials. Otherwise very similar. You have the nice construction on the heel to keep it in place, carbon fiber soles with the adjustments, but again Northwave has a little more advanced design, and then the better ventilation on the sole, as well as the Speedplay compatibility, which is really rare to see. Now with the reflective finish on the Extreme GT2, it's quite similar to the Bont Vapor S Reflex variation. So with the Bont, this is actually fully reflective all the way on the top and around, while the Northwave, you can see, is limited to mainly the back portion and along the sides with this little kind of spray-on pattern. But it's great to see reflective material and paint schemes on cycling clothing and apparel, as you can be a lot safer at night. The Bont is also more anatomical. You can just see visually how much wider it is in the toe box, while the Northwave is fairly generous with the more rounded design. Instead of being pointy, it's still nowhere near the Bont style. Here you can see this is a dual BOA dial, but the Vapor S's are more expensive at almost $400. You can see dual zone wraparound design, but with a tongue on the center, where this is a one piece. And this is the IP1 dial from BOA. So tighten in one direction, loosen, and then pull to do a full release. And you can see here, so I'm mentioning, when it's lifted up like this, it's actually fully released, while the Northwave, you actually have to hold the button up to keep it released. Otherwise, when you let go, it tightens up again. So one minor difference. Now, if you're looking for a little more flashy shoes, the Shimano S-PHYRE is a great option. You can see a little more narrow on the toe box, where the Northwave is wider and a little more anatomical. The Shimano is obviously a lot prettier with the Shimano blue finish. It's almost iridescent quality. You have the heel cup that's similar to the Northwave that tightens up. A full carbon fiber sole. And again, the Northwave gives you the Speedplay option, which you don't really see with a lot of other brands. Ventilation, but a little sleeker design with the Shimano. These are the Li2 dials, which is BOA's latest variation, so very thin. It's almost similar to the Northwave one, but the Northwave is a lot bulkier with the button attachment. With the Li2, they've made it a lot flatter and thinner with the same rotate one direction to tighten, rotate the other direction to do micro loosening, and then a full pull to loosen it. You can see this has a similar wraparound style, so it goes all the way in, as does the Northwave, and that's something you see with all the higher end shoes. The one-piece uppers give you a much more form-fitting fit. And finally, we have the Scott RCSL shoes. This uses the Carbitex carbon fiber upper material, so very thin. So you can see a lot softer than the Northwave, as it uses the carbon fiber itself. Dual BOA dial setup with the IP1. A traditional tongue design, but dual zone with the dual BOA. A nice heel, and similar overall toe box design. Now let's go over the scorecard for the Xtreme GT2 shoes. We're going to grade on 4 different categories: design, closures, comfort, and value. In terms of design, we'd give an A-. Although we do wish there were more color options, that reflective finish has a unique look to it and gives you that nighttime visibility. Closures an A- as well. You get the dual SLW3 dials, which are not quite as intuitive as a BOA dial to use, but do give you micro adjustments for tightening and loosening, which is a feature you don't typically see at this price point. Comfort, we give it an A-. They're stiff and quite comfortable on the road, aside from a little bit of that pressure point around the ankle. And value-wise, we'd give it an A. These are really well-priced shoes, and even though they're an Italian shoe, they don't have that hefty price tag and give you that carbon fiber sole and dual dial setup that you don't typically see. Thanks for watching this review. Don't forget to like and subscribe. You can see more content from us on our website at thesweetcyclist.com, as well as follow us on Instagram at thesweetcyclist. This is The Sweet Cyclist reminding you to enjoy the ride.